I want to get into the private sector offensive actors and some of the work you've done there, not only just raising visibility and so on, but you guys are involved in court cases. I mean, going the legal route as well to try to respond to that type of stuff. When you talked a little bit about the map expanding, in the beginning, it used to be the big powers had a cyber operations and we kind of knew who they were and the reports, you would read a report and you would kind of automatically could make that link. When you start to see this map expanding and you see APT activity in Latin America, in parts of Africa, in parts of the world where it's strange, where are the strangest places that surprise you the most to see kind of like focused, targeted APT activity? Can you give me a sense of some places that it's really, really fascinating and interesting comes out of the blue? And where are you seeing like interesting trends on that side?
So I suppose the facts that when we talked publicly before that like the fact that Vietnam in terms of where people are targeted makes number 2, and a lot of that comes down to the Ocean Lotus, like is interesting. I think the one that personally and more for like funny reasons is because we had this big map and then we had this like big white bit in the middle of Asia from Mongolia. It was just totally white because we had nothing there. But I think we discovered like one tiny bit of activity from like 1 or 2 policemen doing some fishing or something like that. So I got to fill in their map. So you can kind of fill this in that even Mongolia is doing this to some degree. That like somebody somewhere, anybody who has some intelligence or police or other goals is doing something in cyber now. And I think that's part of it. So there's this whole variation of capability. And it's not all about who has the sexiest exploits and who has the sexiest things, right? Like
none of that doesn't matter in the grand scheme. It really doesn't matter if the victim becomes a victim, right?
Yeah, like you only measure somebody by their success at reaching their goals, right? Like, and even the top threat actors like the Russian ones got a lot of good stuff in 2016 via phishing, right? So if you can achieve your goals by sending dumb phishing messages, like that doesn't make you a less effective hacker than somebody not achieving their goals via like really cool firmware or baseband exploits.
Let me ask you a strange, hard question. Is it ever appropriate for a government to have a cyber operation, a cyber malware operation in your mind? I mean, are there cases where you can say legitimate use case?
I think especially if someone coming from this intelligence background, right? I'd say that intelligence collection is a valid function of government, right? So I think governments have kind of agreed it's one of the oldest professions ever is intelligence collection. So you definitely see that intelligence collection isn't in its own right immoral. That does not mean, however, that sort of like they should get a free pass from anybody whose job it is to defend against them. So the spies are going to spy, but my job is to secure Google users and to sort of like make a more secure ecosystem. I do think we need to balance this very carefully. I think there's some very arguments at the moment on equity sort of stuff at the moment. Like,
yeah, it's a very nuanced conversation. Yeah. I don't want to put you on the spot into kind of putting your head on a block for which is legitimate and which is not. But the conversations around like targeting pedophiles and police having access to things to go after counterterrorism operations. I mean, there are a nuance to the conversation about legitimacy.
Yeah, right? I suppose that like my biggest concern with that, which I'd say, and I'm happy to put my head on the block here, is that some of these arguments come down to wanting to make things less secure because of these cases, right? And I can tell you when I look across the ecosystem, when I see what's happening, when I see the threats we're facing in government, everywhere else, like I think they're the only people saying that the world is too secure at the moment and we need to make it less secure. Like I honestly think there is.
You're talking about the encryption debate.
Sorry?
Are you talking about just the encryption debate and that whole kind of...
Yeah, I think about encryption debate. I think about vulnerabilities equity process, about how many exploits people are keeping. I think it's actually wider than that. So, and it comes down to even how much the government invests in their offensive side of NSA versus the defensive side. Like, I'm not the expert, but that balance should be a real debate about, do we get more out of having better offensive capability as a country, or are we so vulnerable that at the moment we really need to prioritize more on defense? And I hope those conversations are happening and being done very thoughtfully.
And the addendum to that question is it ever appropriate for an anti-malware vendor or some sort of defensive technology unit to turn a blind eye, whitelist things that in their mind might be legitimate and ethical? Because it's just, that's the additional question to is, these are friendlies, so we can maybe not detect or maybe whitelist. There's that level of the conversation. Where do you stand there? Are you in the firm defenders must defend everything camp?
I think I think we have to play our correct roles here, right? So like my job is to build secure products, so and say on Chrome or anyone else, right? Like I think it would be incredibly dangerous and the wrong thing to do to start like whitelisting people or allowing them to do things, right? So like if we see that there is like a vulnerability and we know there's a vulnerability in something, then I think we have to get it fixed, right? So they can make their own decisions, but I don't think there's any way we could stand by and say, oh, we're not going to patch, we're going to leave this hole open, because especially because it never really stops with one actor anyway. Even if you like the actor that's currently exploiting this vulnerability and hole, what we see is that these things actually evolve, and if you don't fix the vulnerability, you don't fix the technique, you don't do the protections now when it's the you know quote unquote good actor, then you're going to go see it down the track until eventually you have like ransomware operators doing big destructive attacks from something you didn't fix earlier on. So that's why I think we do need to get there quickly and sort of like fix ahead of time. And this is a good force two to encourage that people actually, if they are going to do these activities, do it well and to increase the costs. I want this to be not easy for people to do.
Right. Here's a weird question. How do you like wake up for work, getting ready to motivate and energize your team to go do this work in a framework where it feels defeatist? I'll tell you why. Like, assume breach is a normal part of a security program. Like, everyone should assume they're compromised and go hunting. Like, that's the status quo. People like you say, hey, if you haven't found an APT in your network, it's because you haven't looked hard enough. Right? It's like this. No, I mean that this is the security expert advice. I'm not, when I say people like you, I mean like in our industry, we kind of normalize that mindset of like, listen, you're already compromised, everything is owned. Like, just go hunting and try to do some defense and try to do blocking and tackling. The reality is there's a lot of nuance there, but the reality is everyone is owned. Like, there's a ransomware epidemic. There's nation state reports popping every day. There's like, how do you wake up and get energized to do this in this world where it just feels like you're just kind of chasing our tails? Is that fair?
A little bit, but not really, right? So I'm actually against some of this security defeatism, right? So like, I think it is true to say that like, if you have like the biggest nation states in the world coming after you, they're able to like, and they're willing to put infinite resources, they're always willing to do something against you, right? But like what I've seen day in, day out is like, sometimes I think we lionize attackers and we actually say that they are much better than they are. And if you see how they're getting through, you see that they can be stopped, right? And day in, day out,
they're not being stopped. But Shane, they're not being stopped. That's the thing. The reality is they're not being stopped. I mean, you talk about the expansion of APT activity to places where you don't need 0 days. And we talk about 0 day discovery being better, and we're amazing at catching 0 day. It's not even relevant.
I think I disagree. Like, I believe, like, and I see it day in, day out that we are stopping attacks, right? We are seeing that, attacks that used to work don't. We see many, like the vast majority of the attacks coming against, say, Gmail users are actually blocked, and we actually do block them getting phished, and they are not compromised, right? So it isn't nearly as bad as you're making out here too, right? Like, and some of these basic protections like, security keys, advanced protections, things we're doing behind the scenes actually are doing a real level of security. Just because there is like some 0 day activity and some people being compromised here isn't a reason to say that they're like, everything is broken. There's no point trying. Don't even bother. Just assume everything's compromised, because I think we're seeing a fairly big range of outcomes here.
When the CEO of SolarWinds gets up on stage and says, listen, it's assumed breach. Like, if you have to assume you're compromised. It feels not necessarily defeatist, but it feels like we're in this, like, this is the reality.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference.
And I know you talk, I mean, like you mentioned Google hardware protection keys, and you mentioned some of the Gmail work and stuff that you do. Amazing work, but it's for the 1%, right? I mean, I look at your own multi-factor adoption numbers in Google, and the numbers are small. I look at Microsoft's MFA numbers, they're tiny. I look at Twitter's, they're tiny. Like, what you're talking about is for a subset of people who are advanced in their mindset about protecting things. Let me finish. I'm arguing that the majority of enterprises, especially mid-market and small businesses, are sitting ducks. And it's just a reality of spending a lot for very little and assuming compromise. Is that fair?
There's a lot there. So yeah, I agree. And like, I think that getting things done via pushing consumers is a great thing to do, but isn't actually our biggest focus. That's one of the reasons.